Everyone, this is the All Black Everything Roundtable, which we have Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern. I forgot what day it was. Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. And consider hitting that member button. Becoming a YouTube member is supporting us that way. If you like getting this content, join up, please. We'd love to have you. Okay, I'm going to introduce everyone, all right? We're going to go down the line. We'll start with a man who's spreading his germs all over his mic. Top Dolphin. Top Dolphin, thanks for being around, buddy. We haven't had our friend Top Dolphin here in forever. Top Dolphin.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. It was like, I don't know. It was like the stars aligned and I didn't have any other things to do and I didn't have work today. It's a lot harder to come on my work nights because I can't do panels for my job. And so, yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be spreading disease to myself and myself and I. And I'm glad this is virtual so I don't have to get you all sick. No, I'm not sick. I'm just allergies. I have the window open because like 80 degrees outside and it's hotter in my apartment, and then seasonal allergies suck.
You don't have like an air conditioning unit?
We do, but it's piss poor. It's awful.
Get a new one.
So well, you can just buy. I live in an apartment. Buy anyway. It's like central air.
Put like
kinda.
a window. Well, kind of apparently is put like a windowsill one.
Well, so the reason that I have the window open is because it's hotter in the other rooms, but this room is so small that the AC like freezes this room. So if I don't have the window open, this room is like winter, and then my bedroom and the other guy's bedroom and the living room are like a sauna. So I just have to be either cold or open a window. So the rest of the apartment's like moderately warm right now. It's like warmer than I like, but like it's pretty cool. But like this room is like so fucking freezing that like if I close the window, I have to put on a jacket.
Oh, that was a whole saga. Thank you so much. All right, next we'll go to Sly Jakes. Who's back with us. Sly, we've missed you, buddy. Since last week, right? I've thought about you.
Every waking moment of his life, he's thought about you.
Right, like I've doodled your name in my notebook, right? Like Sly, thanks for being back.
With hearts by it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, since I gaslit you last week. Yeah. I remember. I was hoping to be in your head. I tried to move in last week. That's what I was trying to do. I tried to move in. But yeah, glad to be back. Clearly, Prime really likes and enjoys my engagement, and so yeah, I look forward to a good one.
Well, I
tonight.
tolerate it one way or the other. Anyway, let's go to Dream. Man,
Right.
Dream is here. Dream, I'm really happy to have you, buddy. All right. And you brought a friend. Please introduce yourself and your lady.
It's not just my friend. This is the love of my life, my future wife. This Hatim D1O Dream, and this is. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jade. Nice to meet you guys. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh,
Yeah, nice to meet you as well.
I watch you guys when he is debating with y'all, so I'm excited to be a part of it today.
Okay.
No,
Oh shit.
no, that's the part that I don't understand. All right. I assume she had never seen this before, but she's watched this and then decided, no, I'm gonna join in.
Yeah. So. Oh shit. Okay.
All right. Well, it's
At least she knows what to
Oh
expect.
yeah, by the way, Jay just got her first acceptance letter from her grad school, so we gotta clap it up.
Yeah. All right.
Oh,
Well,
congratulations.
Congratulations.
She graduated Spelman this year, and very proud of her.
I would love
Great
to see
job.
Black people on the come up. We're absolutely happy
Right,
for
all
you. All right. What are you going to go study in your grad school, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm gonna study either physiology or biomedical science because I want to go to med school, but I would like, an opportunity to increase my GPA one more time before I apply and make me a better candidate. So just this a grad school program for a year, and then I'll apply to med school.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you. All right. So let's move on. We have man Smooth. Smooth, you always eating when you come through. You're always.
I gotta stay consistent, man. And then I gotta always have a drink of some kind, something like water, energy drinks. Like I got it all.
Is that a Modelo?
No, that is a Mitchell. Whatever. Read this.
Okay.
It's a mixed ultra.
We're fine. I don't
Mixed
drink, so
ultra?
I don't know. That was my only guess. I've only seen ads for. Anyway.
Yeah, but I've
Modelo is
seen,
like the not shitty Corona. That's what Modelo is.
The only reason I know how to pronounce it is because of the ads. But yeah, Michelob Ultra. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, buddy.
Oh yeah, man. Hey, I'm glad to come through. This is gonna be fun. This is gonna be a great one, guys. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I'm saying? Eventually our DLC characters will load in. You know what I'm saying? And we'll be great.
I like this version of Smooth. I like this. All right. And last but absolutely not least, we have DeAndre Pace back with us. DeAndre made a splash, I think, the first time they were here. So I had to hit them up, right? They had different opinions than the rest of us, which I love. So DeAndre, thanks for spending your time here. I know you're a busy guy, so thank you for coming through. Sounds beautiful. Just brilliant points made by a muted man.
You need to unmute yourself, bro.
Yeah, he'll get in a second. Well, in a second now.
This is like when the news network's like, oh, we're having some technical difficulties. And then you stand there awkward, waiting for the person to realize their mic is muted.
He's working on it. Good. So whenever you got it, just like, shout it out. And
are we gonna cut to the weather or something?
We'll cut to the weather. We'll cut to the weather. Okay.
It's gonna rain.
It's gonna rain.
It's gonna rain.
Okay.
It's hot everywhere. It's hot.
We'll get started. Hopefully, we'll get that worked out. But we're happy to have DeAndre here on the other. Okay. So, first topic: a celebrity named DJ Academics stated that he would have sex with underage girls as long as they had a college ID. He said there's no difference between a 17 and 21-year-old. People replied saying that he was 20 when he made the statement, like, chatters replied, saying that he was 20 when he made the statement, so that exonerates him. Do you agree with that? The law seems to agree by providing Romeo and Juliet exceptions, but does that make this statement acceptable? Should society be going after men with this mindset, no matter their age? So yeah, this is actually a note interview for this guy. I never heard of this guy, DJ Academics. I'm like a fan or anything. I never heard of him, right? But that's not surprising. But he this is like a 2013 interview, and he made this statement talking about these two are the same, and that as long as this woman has a college ID, he's gonna fuck him, definitely, right? So, but like again, we have Romeo and Juliet laws where we give a leeway for people who are of a certain age, right? To still be with a person who is underage. So like society might agree. So I want to know what your mindset on this. We'll start with Top Dolphin for opening statements.
Yeah. So actually, if you read the article, I think he kind of came out and like talked about it. Maybe he prepped it with a publicist or whatever. I think he had a really good take on this. And he talks about how like age of consent, like the legal thing is like really, it's just like a line that we draw kind of arbitrarily. And that like, realistically, once you're in college, like, really like college delineates like a certain amount of experience. And so like people in college are all like, whether maybe not freshmen to seniors, but like in general, people in college all have like the same sort of experiences compared to people in high school. So he's like, if someone's in college but they're 17, he's like, he doesn't really care like if he's 20 because they're in college too and they're having a more similar experience than he would with somebody who's like in high school and 17. So I agree is what I'm saying, I guess.
Okay. You with DJ Academics?
Yeah,
Okay.
100%.
All right, Sly.
I don't know. Ever since reading this, I've kind of gone back and forth with this because part of the reasons for this is, and I didn't get too into the article, so you guys can correct me along the way. So, as far as I understand, 18 is like the legal age. So if someone's getting into a space where the legal age to get into like a club or something is like 18 or 21, but they have like a fake ID or something like that. I think when you find that out as an adult, you have, in the moment that you have that knowledge, you have the obligation to act appropriately as an adult. The deception that is done by that other person does not exonerate you from what the law is. So I disagree with DJ Academics on this one. I think that in whichever space, if the age is, if it's a club where it's 21 and someone faked their ID and they're 19 even, I'd even go as far as to say that they have an obligation to act accordingly and not take advantage of that, especially if they meet them in a space where they were not supposed to be.
Interesting. That'll be fun. We're gonna examine that too. I'm liking this already because I wasn't sure we'd have a lot of disagreement on this one, but this will be fun. Let's go to Hatim and Jade.
Can you put J back in?
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah. My brother, can you speak now? Nope.
We don't hear you. We don't hear you.
Go to your settings, bro, and if you see that bar going to the green and stuff like that, that's how you know your mic
might be your
Discord settings for sure.
So he might want to just close out of Discord altogether, like completely, and then come back in.
Maybe he already did that. Maybe he just came back in. Yeah, maybe he'll. We'll work on it. Don't worry. We'll get this worked out, DeAndre. Let's go to Hatim and Jade.
I think when it comes to this particular statement, I think the premise isn't that as long as they're in a college environment, that anything is okay, because 12-year-olds can go to college. You know, if you're really smart, you can go to college at whatever age, if you're a super genius. So if you're 8 years old going to college, I don't think you should be having sex. But it does, the other point is that if we allow through Juliet and Romeo and Juliet laws for a 20-year-old, 17-year-old have sex, he's saying there's not that much difference between a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old, which is true. Whatever difference there is, it's not that much. And so we as a society really have to talk and be like, is this really a morally bad thing for a 21-year-old to have sex with a 17-year-old? And in my opinion, I don't think it is. It's not that bad, if it is bad at all, especially if it's meaningfully consented. So Sly was talking about taking advantage of. It's not inherently a taking advantage of situation, especially if it's, you know, even engaged by the woman that's younger too. So it's not necessarily a wrong thing. It just depends on the situation.
I was gonna say the same thing, really. I think because the age difference between the two of them, or 17 to 21, is 4 years, it's not that bad. Maybe if it was like a 17-year-old maybe still in high school, I would feel different, and the 21-year-old was in college. But I think maybe because they're both in college around the same age and of the same mindset, it's okay if they're both consenting. But like Hatim said, and at my own college, they've admitted 14-year-olds there. And so you have to think about, you know, just because they have a college ID, it doesn't mean that it's automatically okay. Their age should be considered. And I don't think if it's a wider age gap, then it should be seen as okay.
Especially like in some states, the age of consent is like 16. Like in Georgia, the age of consent is 16. And so if you can consent at age 16, I don't think it's that big a deal to have sex at 17. And 17 to a 20-year-old, that is basically a freshman and a senior in college. soon as like the first month of college, that's basically what it is. For a lot of situations. So I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's bad for a senior.
I gotta start writing some of this down because there's lots of things we could talk about in response. But all right, so we'll move on. But Dream, consider muting your notification sounds so we don't hear when we get messages and stuff. Yeah. Okay, let's go Smooth.
Okay, so for me, so in his scenario, just taking his scenario into account, his scenario is fine as is, right? Because it's just you're 20, that person, y'all could have went to high school together, honestly, and been together the whole time. So if y'all end up doing something and it's like 17 to 20 in college, that's fine. I can live with that. I can live. And then even it gets really weird, like when it's like the age of consent, right? Like let's say the age of consent, right, is like 16, right, in whatever state. And then you have like once you're pushing like 25, 24. Honestly, I want to say like 23, 24, 25 ish. That range, you start to become like almost a predator. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why are you talking to this young woman? Like, why? Like, there's no good reason. Even if she's in college with you, with college ID, why are you here? Like, why aren't you doing something else with your time? Like, the most disturbing people in college to me have always been those old head guys that was in college, but they be at like every party. I'm like, fam, you 30. What are you doing? Why are you here? You are 30 years old. Leave. Get out of here. Like, you're talking to all these freshman girls. I'm like, these girls are 18, 17. Like, this is a charge waiting to happen. This is manipulation. Like, it feels like those men want somebody that they can easily like talk to. However, again, I want to go back to DJ Academics is not wrong in the time period he said it and what he's exactly talking about. He's not wrong.
DeAndre.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There you go. There it is.
I reset my settings. I switched to my crappier microphone, but I don't know. I heard myself on all my microphones. Let me see if I can swap to my good one. That way you don't have to hear that audio break up and all that type of stuff. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah,
okay,
we can hear.
That's awesome. So I don't know what was going on with Discord. It's been doing stupid stuff lately.
It's maybe acting up.
Okay. Well, please, we just introduced the topic. We were the first topic on the DJ Academics and Age of Consent. So we'd love to hear your opinion.
I don't know. I don't know very much about this person. I've never heard of him until you sent me this post. I've never seen the person before. But from my understanding is, it really boils down to what state you live in, because some states have different rules at which they consider people to be adults. Some states you're legally able to marry at age 17, some states age 16. Now, if we as a society have decided that 18 is the age of when you're a legal adult and can make consenting decisions that aren't predatory, then I think that this is just horrible for this person to say, because it just shows a level of immoral debauchery that's going on within our pop culture icons that think they can just get away with doing anything. Especially because it makes you wonder how many times this may have actually happened with this person, because you have all these young people going to these concerts and things like that, the groupies, and they go backstage, and it opens up the mind to a whole bunch of stuff. And so I hope that he's never taking advantage of it, but I don't like the sounds of it. But again, I think it really boils down to the state that you are in. But if we're as a better society, if we agree that 18 is the legal age, then nobody should be saying things like that where 17 years old is something of legal consent.
Okay. All right. Open to the panel.
Yeah, so I think we get like you can get into the legal stuff. To be honest with you, the legal stuff is really boring, and I it's really hard to like understand, like, because like laws differ from state to state and sometimes from municipality. I know, for like personally, I know there's like a legal, like you have the age of consent, which is like the age in which someone is able to consent to sexual activity. But like, I'm not sure if that in every state applies to minors, right? So like, technically, when you're 16, you're the age of the consent, but I don't know if that means you can like consent with every single adult at every single age. I think it usually just means you consent with people around your age, but I'm not exactly sure how all that like irons out into like the small details legally. But when we get into like more of like the question about like why do we have age consent, we get into more like the moral arguments and stuff behind it. Generally, the reason that we don't want young people fucking old people is because there's like undue power dynamics there. And I think it's like very easy to just like allow what a lot of people do is they're like, oh my God, this person older than this person, that's like predatory and not right. But a lot of times when we use age, we're not actually using age to talk about like the number itself, but we're using age as a proxy for like other things, like the amount of development a person's gone through or the amount of life experience person has, like the setting they're in and stuff like that. And so when you say something like, oh yeah, like a 17-year-old can't consent to sex with like a 20-year-old, it's like, well, maybe like in some cases it might actually depend on the 17-year-old, right? And like legally, maybe every time it's okay or not when you're paying on the state, but like morally, maybe you have a 17-year-old who's like never left their parents' house, has never like been on their own and never done anything by themselves and is like super highly dependent. And then you could also have, there are 17-year-olds out there who like run businesses and like live basically adult lives, but like with a little bit of parental supervision. And these two people, in terms of consent, I would say have way different like bars of like who they should be able to consent to sex with.
DeAndre, we got some background noise from you. If you could keep yourself muted. But I think that's super interesting what you're saying, Top Off. First of all, does it make a difference if a person is running a business, whether like they are like mature in the area of like sexual consent? Like, is that indicative of anything? That like, you know, like you can handle this very special human interaction?
Well, like a lot of times you use things for proxy. So I meant like running a business. I don't mean, oh, they can run a business, so that means they can consent to anything. But like someone who runs a business probably interacts with adults a lot more, probably has a lot more money than your average person, probably is pretty self-sufficient in a lot of ways that a person who like lives in their parents' basement and has never left doesn't have, right? So like if you're like 17, but you're like every day you're in business meetings with adult, it's going to be a lot harder for certain types of adults, like some adults, like not all adults obviously, but for all adults to influence you in like in a way that they could someone who doesn't have that same experience. Like we lose a little bit to like like obviously like we can talk about like their prefrontal cortex not being completely developed and stuff like that. And that is definitely like a factor that plays in and stuff like that. But that's not the only factor that we talk about. We don't like go measure people's brains and see how like develop their prefrontal cortex is. But we're like a lot of the things are like one of the like, for example, a big example of like something that like a minor could have like influence over them is like adults have money, right? That's like a big one. A lot of times adults have money, they have jobs, they're self-sufficient, and minors don't. So like a minor might be pressured into having sex out of the idea that like this person will buy them things or provide them a place to live or stuff like that. And like that's probably not a fair influence or not a just influence that like people should have over minors and stuff like that. So that like it's not necessarily that, oh, they can run a business, so that means they're like experienced per se, although it kind of sounded like that when I said it. It's more that like the experience is like the sufficient self-sufficiency that you gain from like running a business probably would help in like mitigating the other other like power dynamics that are at play.
Yeah, because this is, I don't think this is like an R. Kelly type situation. I hate to bring that up, but this is not that situation. This is not like, yo, this is some big highfalutin celebrity. Like no, DJ Academics when he was in college was no one. He was nobody. Like he was just a regular college student. And then she just happened to be a regular freshman. And they happened to meet up. I'm pretty sure he probably turned 18 that school year. I mean, if people are that concerned about the age thing, but I think it's more of a maturity thing. And plus, like, I'm okay. How many? There's like a whole plethora of people that when they were younger, right, when they were teenagers, you know what I'm saying, like they lost their virginity to adults and wanted to. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't even that they were not they were taken advantage of. They literally sought it out. Like that's a societal thing that really happens. A lot of people don't like to discuss that, but it's a real thing. You know what I'm saying? Typically, women date older guys, and which leads to them dating when they're in high school, dating guys that are like already outside of high school. Like it's just a thing that already happens. It's a reality. You know what I'm saying? And guys typically date younger. You know what I'm saying? Does that lead to some 20, 19, and 18-year-olds still talking to girls that are like 17? Sure, it does. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think this scenario is too different than if they were in high school together, boyfriend and girlfriend, and then at the end of the day, he went to college and she stayed in high school and they just stayed together. Like, what?
Fundamentally, I just don't accept this. I don't accept this reasoning because the from what I understand, the Romeo and Juliet laws exist for situations where if people were in high school and close in age, let's say you were 16 and you're dating a 15-year-old or something like that.
No, it's not that.
And
it's specifically for 18, like 18 dating. When you turn 18 in high school, like it's to cover you for when you're dating that high school girl that you've still been dating.
Okay,
that's what the Romeo and Juliet clause is for.
Okay, but does that law then put you in an exemption where if you can go to a club at age 18, that you would then get a fake ID for your 17-year-old girlfriend to get into that space? That law does not extend to that.
But that
I don't know if this has to do with doing clubs.
That law is literally talking about
the reason I'm talking about clubs
and the sex they have.
So the reason why I'm using clubs as a proxy for a place where people go to possibly hook up or get to know people for the purpose of hooking up and having sex. So I'm using club as a proxy for that right now. It can be any other place where people would, because when I hear him talking, I'm assuming that he is going into spaces that would allow for him to hit on said underage people.
College.
So
she was in his class.
And when I hear the question of asking for ID, I hear the understanding that this person knows this other person's underage. So this is where I'm taking this.
He had a college ID and was at the club and at the party. Like if she got a college ID and at the party, he stopped asking questions.
But if the college ID says she's 17,
you want to.
If he knows she's 17,
college IDs don't tell your age. What are you saying?
Oh no, they might.
It depends on your school. But yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
some of them know something.
Yeah, when I first got my college ID, it didn't, and then I did use it to actually sneak in someplace. But later versions actually added that. My same college.
Okay. And I can be corrected, but again, I'm saying that he's aware of the other person being underage. That's what I'm saying. Even though he's 18, 19.
Next week.
I'm sorry.
I think you're right. I don't think anybody's end of her 17th year. You know what I'm saying? If she's in college, that's likely the case.
Okay.
She's months away from 18 at most, if not.
Like, what's the real
even if she's in college, it doesn't give her the exemption to.
I'm saying I'm not hearing a moral argument from you. I'm hearing a legal one.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, there is a moral argument to it.
The moral argument
would be that they knew that the older individual knew that the person with the ID was underage. If you were moral, if you were in good standing with your with morality, you would wait until they turn 18. You wouldn't.
Why?
Because that's moral character.
Wait, that sounds
integrity.
even more predatory. You're gonna sit around and wait till they turn, till the birthday happens.
This one, I didn't actually look at the article. I just read the topic, but it's a little bit more nuanced because they're so close in age. Been 17, 20, 18. I'm not going to say that there's not a difference, because there clearly is a difference, and the difference comes from whether or not the individuals were in courses together or in classes together where they actually had involvement, or whether this is just somebody who's 21 that's meeting a 17-year-old for the first time and is trying to encourage them to have lewd behavior. There's differences when you look at it that way. If this was an ongoing relationship and somebody just happened to meet the benchmark legal age, it's different than it would have been if it was just some random person sitting outside of a high school or a college waiting to pick up a 17-year-old. It's a little bit different.
This is the issue, though. My issue is that. Okay,
hold on, read the article. It's like super short. Just read the article.
Quick.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, I just looked over it, so I'm saying, yeah, this is a little bit different because, like I said, it's, if they were in courses together, if they've been together all that time, it's a little bit different, especially when you consider that a lot of times in high school and colleges, it's cool to date upward in age or downward in age for women. I think Smooth said it. For women, it's typically cooler to date somebody that's older than you are when you're in high school. If you're a freshman, a ninth grader, you want to date an 11th grader or the senior because it's just cooler. So there's a lot of variables they get involved.
We have a woman here. I'm curious what your opinions are on this, Jade. And like how acceptable it is among your own personal experiences, and even if you don't want to talk about that, in terms of like friends, maybe how would they look at that if you were back in high school?
I know in high school, like someone mentioned before, it is seen as cooler to date someone older than you. And, if they get upward and they go to college and you stay together, it's still seen as cool. But I feel like if you're 17 through 21 in college together, I feel like in this one case, it's not that big of a deal. I know Hatim's 2 years older than I am. And so I wasn't looking for, someone older than me. But it just happened to be that way. And I don't think there was a problem with it. Not that I was a minor when that happened, but I don't think there was an issue with it. And I was just interested to see how you guys would feel if, say they're in the same class, they're both juniors in college, and one person is 20 and the other person is 17. Does that make a difference at all? Because I feel like that could maybe sway your thinking if you're thinking against it, as a legal or moral thing. But if they're in the same class, I feel like that would be okay. But I also feel like it would be okay if they were in different years but still in college. So
okay, so I can always backtrack to sort of align my understanding of this situation, because the reason why I say this, if they are in the same class, I wouldn't even say that it's bad for them to date. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's certain spaces that if we allow the breaking, so for me it really aligns, and maybe I was reading too much into what I think Dr. Acadia
DJ
or
Academic.
DJ or whatever. I'm sorry, my bad. Maybe I was reading too much into what he said, but for me, the idea is that this person did a wrong, something illegal, where they're age 17 they presented themselves not they engaged in a space where they could be seen to be as an adult, but maybe I'm assuming that when I say
you
that.
You are assuming a whole lot of malice, a whole lot of deception when it's not even that. She was just being herself. He was being himself. They looked at each other and they said, you look good. You look good too. Then they start talking to each other and they're like, hey, I like you. I like you too. Let's hang out. Let's hang out after dark.
Yeah. Okay,
let's hang out in the same room.
I'm completely
like I ain't gotta walk you through it.
Okay,
you know
I can be swayed.
Like, you know,
I can be swayed.
Bro, here's the thing that's bothering me. Like, you know how this goes.
I know how this goes, but I can I can be swayed on the argument of them being in the same college, them dating in a space where they're possibly in the same class. All these spaces are allowing for them to exist. But I'm saying that if we're talking about doing something illegal to get into a space that is meant for where the other person is considered to be
legally there. She legally has a scholarship.
But I'm not arguing on that basis.
That's why they gave her an ID.
Okay. My reasoning for this is saying that, the relationship itself is fine as long as they're on spaces where this is allowed. However, those relationships are going to run into issues of being in spaces where it's not allowed. And the reason why I say that should be like a red flag is because we want to make those other spaces that are intended for adults safer. So if we are,
I'm hold on before I'm a little curious because you said something.
Maybe I'm an idiot
at the start. Oh yeah. No, I'm not.
Okay. Yeah. I'm an idiot.
No, I'm an idiot. Great. No. But I think it's interesting the way you're taking this. Because you're taking this in a direction I didn't expect anyone to. So first, something you said in your opening statements. You were talking about like if the minor 17-year-old gets into a couple of fake ID that the person like and an adult approaches them, that the adult should still be held responsible when like if
they find out.
If they find out. So I want to be clear what you're saying there, because as far as I understand with the law is that you are responsible. It doesn't matter if they fucking lied to you, which is unbelievable. But like,
that should be reversed. We need to abolish that law.
I think that law needs to stay because the fact is if you are
that law sucks.
You need to understand that, especially you go to these frat parties and stuff like that. There are underage people trying to get there at all time. You need to take the extra step to make sure that the person that you are about to get in bed with isn't about to put you up on a bogus rape charge that will destroy your life.
DeAndre, if the dude, the bodyguard who's checking the IDs said, "Oh yeah, that's a real ID," what makes you that me, a layman, is gonna think that's
a bodyguard is not in control of your actions. You
not understand what I just said? She gave the ID to the person who's in charge of making sure it's a real ID.
Okay,
they bribe, they pay their way to get in. You know how that happens.
Okay, well, we can bring this to a different situation, right? We can talk about a situation, right, where like necessarily like, so if you want to know how the law works, right? Technically, this girl could show you an ID saying she's like 21, right? You could be in a bar and she could be like 17, right? And like you could see it, maybe it's the realest fake idea you ever saw. You could see it, be like, oh yeah, you're 21. If you sleep with a 17-year-old girl, you're fucked no matter what, right? Like I think there's some issues with that law. I don't know necessarily like how you change it in a way to make it fair. But like because there's probably some reasons that like laws like this should exist. A girl shouldn't be able to walk into a bar at 17 and just a girl looks like she's 14, walks into a bar and like is like oh, she's in a bar, so like she's free game. Like obviously that shouldn't be the case. But at the same time, like I could show anybody in this room pictures of like 15-year-old girls who look older than like 22, 23-year-old girls. right? And I can show you 22, 23, 24-year-old girls who look like they're fucking 14. You can't judge somebody based on their appearance, how old they are. And if like as a guy, right? Like I can't even, or as like a person, like an older person, you can't even like look at an ID to like confirm someone's age and not like reduce liability. It seems kind of shitty because like then you're living in this world where like the reason I say this because like college parties, like there are a lot of teenagers, especially boys and girls, who go to college parties specifically to fuck college kids, right? Especially like for college football players. I had a friend who was on the football team in high school. Not my football team. He was my college friend who was in football, and he used to go to parties at like a party school. It's OU, Ohio University, big party school, and for Halloween. And they would go there, and they would all get wasted and try to see if they could hook up with college girls. And they were like 16, 17-year-old like high school football players. And like this isn't like and the idea that like whether or not it's a guy or a girl, that like these people could like necessarily check an ID that like looks real, right? And like be like, oh, like you're 21, and then sleep with this person who's like going out of the way to try to sleep with them, and then be on the hook even though they tried to like verify and stuff is kind of shitty, I think.
So topped off, and then I want to say this one last thing, and then I want to hear from Smooth. But like topped off, you said like there might be a good reason why these laws exist. So I was like thinking about it, like why would this? In what situation would we want this law to exist, right? But like, let's say we didn't have this protection, and you knew that, right? Like, if you have plausible deniability, then like they're up for grabs. What if you managed to like get your underage girlfriend or whatever, right, to buy a fake ID, right? It's like, oh, well. In case anyone ever asks, just show them fake ID. I didn't know, right? And then you go from there.
Yeah, like you get into some weird stuff where it's like, I think that technically, like if you could prove that they made them buy an ID, then obviously, like you get into some weird situations, and where like people who obviously should have known that somebody was underage pretended like they didn't know so that they could hook up with like they could sleep with minors, and that's not fair. But if you don't get rid of the law, you can have this other situation where people who look overage, like and like there's no way to tell, end up in like spaces that are for overage people, and necessarily like consent to something that like the person who's overage has no agency in that situation. Like you've removed completely all agency from that person, because how are they supposed to know the difference? Like
smooth and slide.
So my thing is this, right? If you're at one of those places where a minor snuck in illegally, right? 9 out of 10, you are drinking or under the influence of something already, just off rip. You're probably there just trying to have a good time. You're not thinking, oh man, somebody's out to get me. Somebody laid a trap out here in the club, and I gotta go find it. I gotta make sure I'm watching and waiting to defend myself against this trap. Like that's not fair to any male or female. That is not fair. That's not. If we're telling you when you're let's just say the person is drunk. You're drunk. You're not supposed to drive. You're not supposed to operate heavy machinery. You're not supposed to do all these other things because your judgment is impaired. What makes you think this same person that can't do any of those things is going to then start using their brain going, man, that person sure looks good. Let me get their ID. Like they're not even thinking about that. These are the same people that are liable when they drink and drive. Like you can't make these people go, oh man, I need to always be on guard.
But those are the people that need to be. So those are the people that need to be protected the most. I think the reason why we have
the law does not protect them. The
law protects.
Says if you sleep with this person, whether knowingly or unknowingly, you're fucked.
Okay.
Go to jail. Do not get out. Do not pass go. This is what you're doing.
I think when it comes to my big question is like, why aren't we holding these underage girls accountable?
That's what I was gonna say. That the accountability needs to be equal.
And you're intentionally going to these clubs. You be like, hey yo, I'm trying to have sex with a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, or whatever. You know what you're doing, right? And you know you're getting people.
That should probably be a felony.
Oh, well, we do hold them
And if
accountable,
you-
right? The
Hold on,
21, the 17-year-old, 16, 17-year-old, the minor in this case gets like an underage drinking charge, right? Maybe a trespassing charge.
They don't
And the
drink.
adult gets a rape charge. Like that's how we hold them accountable.
They don't
No, we
drink.
don't.
I'm saying just on sex alone. Let's say no one drinks. They
We
don't
hold them
drink at
accountable.
all.
The law is very skewed in the
But,
favor.
but DeAndre, is it a fact or not that an underage person can be predatory to somebody older?
It is.
Yes,
it is.
they can.
And the
So if
fact
that's the
is
fact,
that this
We
happens.
should
a
hold them
lot.
accountable.
We should, but what I'm
Right.
saying in this particular case, if you are the adult, Smooth, you kind of proved the point of the drinking. When you drink and you drive and you cause an accident, you're held liable for that because you know that your judgment is impaired. It's the same thing in these cases when you're having relationships with people that may be underage. You just because your judgment is impaired, it does not mean that you are not liable for your own actions. So
What?
we have
But we're not talking about
No,
whether or not you're
I-
liable. We're telling
I
you
am
about
not with
whether or
DeAndre
not
on this
it
one.
ought to be
So look,
liable.
the only way you can
On
make
the
that
same-
scenario the same, DeAndre, the only way you can make that scenario the same is if somebody literally knew, hey, that person looks like they're drinking and driving. I'm going to pull my car in front of theirs and
The
say,
fact is
please.
that you don't. The fact is that you don't
Smooth,
know whether or
Smooth.
not they are or not. So you have to take extra precautions. If you don't, that's your decision. Whether your judgment is impaired or not, you are liable for the decisions that you make. Life isn't fair.
We should.
Trying to get a paycheck
So
out of it.
we should drop the whole impaired thing, right? Because the impaired thing doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
It's a really bad analogy that doesn't like get at the point because we hold people who are impaired. We basically in some senses, not all senses, like if an impaired person can't sign a contract, for example, but like an impaired person is liable if they for like strict liability crimes like drinking and driving and stuff like that. Like you can't like get drunk and then rape somebody, right, or murder somebody. You're still liable at that point. But at the same time, like you can think about like to make it analogous, the problem is what we're saying is there are probably situations out there in which somebody could take every necessary because the alternative is like, oh, just never hook up with anybody who's at a bar because like there's a potential they're a high schooler, right? Because you can take every necessary step.
You say that like that's a bad alternative, though.
No,
I would say that's a bad alternative. I don't think like adults should have to live in a world, right? Like I shouldn't be 19 and be scared, or like 21 and be scared that if I go to a bar and try to meet somebody my age to like hang out with and have a good time with, that I'm gonna get like a rape charge because but
see, there's a difference between hanging out with somebody and having a one night stand. Those are two completely different ballparks.
That's the same thing. Okay, well we can play the language game if you want, right?
Yeah.
I go to a bar, I have a fun time, and then I take them home and have sex with them, right? Like,
but the reason Top Dolphin, my sentiment, and maybe I don't go all the way as DeAndre is going, but my sentiment is that the reason that this is sort of like vague is because there hasn't been enough accountability held on to these people who do get these fake IDs and these younger underage people who do get into these clubs. The penalty for that is nowhere near as damning and as scary. So that's why I think that in some ways it's still vague. And
it's not for sure. I don't necessarily think we need to. So like the weird thing is, I really don't think we should be like slapping the book at kids who like break into clubs and drink or bars and drink.
Oh,
that's kids. I mean, they shouldn't do it, but like. High school kids drink, right? High school kids like to drink. High school kids like to go to parties too, and they're gonna try to do it. And if they make that mistake, like we shouldn't like hit them with crimes, right?
That's no justification for letting them get off scot-free.
No, I'm not saying we should let them get off scot-free. What I'm saying, right? Hold on, wait, DeAndre, let me finish, okay? I'm not saying we should let them get off scot-free. What I'm saying is that the law should find a way. Lawyers could probably do this. I'm not very good at this. Should find a way
Right.
So we just changed the law.
Okay,
on
I get
age
that.
or
I
so
get
many of
that
these
they
other things.
wait. I understand,
Why
but we
let them
don't.
get,
Just because a minor, like, there's a reason that when minors break the law, we find them delinquent and we don't find them like guilty, right?
That's
Because we hold minors to a different standard that we hold adults. Right? The problem,
you don't have any real consequences.
Jesus, you don't let me finish, Doug.
Yeah,
all right. The problem isn't that we're not punishing minors enough. I don't think that's really the problem. Like, minors make mistakes, they get punished, and like maybe they should be, maybe like the enforcement of the law is not there, but like that's not the issue here. The issue here is that we need an exception, right? That if somebody who goes through every reasonable precaution possible, right? Let's say I get like 7 forms of ID from this person, right? And like they have 7 fake forms of ID. And then I have sex with like this minor, and this minor like they turn out to be a minor, but I think they're 21, right? It shouldn't be that we punish the minor harder, right? It's that we should not punish. We should make exceptions for the adult who did take the proper steps and like could not have known. Because I don't know about you, but I don't think it's right to charge someone with a crime for something they couldn't knowingly do, and there's no way they could have known.
Do you understand how difficult this? Do you understand how difficult this gets into? Because a lot of people are pretty predatory, and they can engage in these spaces and make sure they are not capable of making the right judgment and get into certain states where they can't make the right judgment.
Thank you, Sly, because you're agreeing exactly what I said at the beginning. The problem with the law is that the law is like subject to abuse from either side, right? And if you lean too far towards the adults, it ends up with minors getting raped. And then if you leave it too much to the side of the children or the minors, it ends up with adults getting rape charges that aren't fair. Right. And unfortunately, like, it sucks, but like, even I think that it's probably better that someone gets a false rape charge than like another minor get raped. That's not fair.
It's not better for somebody to get a false rape charge.
I don't like maybe
they're not equivalent.
I disagree with you on that, but at least you stand where you stand.
Wait a minute, you don't disagree with that.
I'll actually come out here. I would rather some random dude get a rape charge than like a kid get raped. All right. If we lived in some fantastical world, okay, I'll bite the hypothetical where I could like
you do
go to
realize
jail
that in some states
for a rape charge, so that like a minor didn't have to get raped. I'd do it every time. We
would rather United States. We would rather let a criminal go scot free than to jail an innocent man. That's our principle here. That's our philosophy in the United States. We would jailing.
That is. So
you would. So let me just make this. You would rather somebody get You'd rather somebody get murdered than somebody be falsely accused for murder. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not equivalent.
I'd rather somebody.
It's the exact same thing, dog. It's the exact same thing.
No, it's not at all.
How is it different?
That is not
just. I need to make my distinction at some point.
It's easily not the same thing, because getting murdered, is not the same thing.
Because getting murdered is getting murdered worse than getting raped. Is that what you're saying? Like,
no, hold on.
I would say these things are pretty comparable.
I'm not allowed to speak. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So getting murdered is not the same thing as letting a murderer go free. Okay, it's not the same thing. Because getting murdered is not letting a murderer go free is not guaranteeing that somebody will murder, but you are guaranteeing that somebody will suffer eternally, potentially, when you put them in prison unjustly. Do you understand?
Sure, but you have to guarantee. You're not even making the right analogy, dog. You're not connecting the dots. What I said is I would rather have
analogy that you'd rather have somebody be.
Okay. We got to get order so we can move things along. So Top Dolphin can respond, and then we'll go to Pace, and then Sly.
Yeah. So to be clear, what I'm saying is the law exists, and there's a duality here. In one sense of the law, if you lean too far on one side, you end up with a minor who gets raped, which is really, really bad. But if you lean too far to the other side, you end up with a adult who gets a false rape charge. And unfortunately, when structuring the law, I'd rather end up with less minors getting raped instead of more adults getting less adults getting false rape charges. That's all I was saying. Okay. And so like when we make that the rule, right, we probably want that rule to skew on the side of favoring minors, right? Favoring protecting minors over falsely imprisoning people. However, right now, I think that law probably leans a little bit too far over, and there's probably a way that we could like make exceptions to bring it back. However, I don't think we should bring it so far back that it ends up with minors getting raped and people getting away with it.
DeAndre, Sly, then Bam.
I think that is a horrible analogy because the fact is that our laws are set up for that you're innocent until proven guilty. If somebody is falsely accused of rape of any charge to any degree, whether it's been proven false or not, their life is done. It's over. I've seen so many college boys. Unfortunately, many of those college boys are black and that have their lives completely ruined because of a false rape accusation because somebody had sex with them and later regretted having sex with them and then came back and said that it was rape. And then turns out that they have a whole message, a mile long of text messages talking about their consensual sexual encounters. So no, not at all. If you want the best of both worlds, you do the best of both worlds. You punish people who are breaking the law. And those people who are not breaking the law, if they can prove sufficiently that they did not know, and then they can prove that they were deceived by the other person, the person who did the deceiving should face the charges of that. That is a crime.
All I want to say is
I
know a lot of people out there who are raped as minors and their lives are ruined forever too, Doc. That's all I want to say.
Sly. Let's go to Sly, then Bam.
Okay, so in some ways, I agree with Top Dolphin's solution, where I don't go as far as DeAndre, but I want to make clear that the reason that we should have some sort of accountability. I understand that these are minors, but these are minors that are breaking the law in some way, and this is the way we sort of coddle these situations, and we're like, oh, they're children. But on the other side of this, there's an adult's life that may be accused for something that they were not even able to understand because some minor decided to go to a college party. So we need to make sure that we are equal in our punishments, because right now I don't think that's the case. Right now I think it's clearly skewed to, oh, minors are just being minors.
I think you're
so equal in punishment, right? That would basically mean that like the minor should get the equivalent of a rape charge, right? The problem is the way that we deal with justice and the way that we handle minors in the legal system, with the exception of like charging minors as an adult, which shouldn't even exist. But the way that we deal with this is that like minors, like if a minor and adult commits the exact same crime, the minor is always going to get off easier, right? Because we do hold leeway to minors. That's how our legal system works. That's why minors are found delinquent. That's why a lot of times their stuff can get wiped off the record. So we don't, like I said, we don't necessarily want to punish minors harder, right? We should, there probably should be some enforcement, right? The minors should probably get in some amount of trouble, right? But the issue here, I don't think, is that minors go to college club.
I don't think they do.
Oh, wait,
hold on, wait, because you're not engaging. All right. The problem is that minors are going to bars, hooking up with people over 18, and then the minor's life is ruined or anything like that, right? We're not, or that like the mind, like if that happened, right, necessarily, and no one got legally punished, right, that would be fine. We don't need to punish the minor for the law punishing the person over the age of majority more, right? We don't need to punish the minor more. We need to lessen the consequences for people over the age of majority who are acting in good faith, right? That's what the law tries to do. And then we don't need to punish the minors because the minors aren't getting anybody in trouble.
Yes,
right?
They are.
So then they get whatever charge they get for sneaking, like a trespassing charge for sneaking into a place they're not supposed to be.
I gotta let it in someone else, and then we'll let everyone respond. I promise. All right. So Black American Made, thank you for being here. We're glad that you could make it. I know you had a lot of difficulties.
Yeah, sorry I'm late.
No, not a problem, buddy. Please, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, and then we'll back to everyone else.
Okay, so the thing is, like, when you say that we're coddling minors, you're absolutely right. If there's anyone in the system that that are meant to be coddled, it's children. In the system, like, but realistically, what Top was saying was the only way that you handle things. Like, to say that. I think Pace said that described that like false accusations are bad, which no one in here disagreed with. But you have to verbalize that false accusations we would rather have less false accusations if it meant more children being raped. And I don't think I think that's a weird statement to make, because that's the dichotomy that we're having, right? That's the dichotomy that Top Dolphin said.
Yeah,
so that you were on one side of the, but I'm saying it doesn't matter if you think they're analogous. That was the dichotomy that was given, and you decided to side with the less false accusation side, which I think is really, really weird. Between those two, you did. I
said at the beginning the whole time that it was never analogous. You can't compare those types of things.
But that was it's not about them being compared. He said that it's a dichotomy. It's just saying, would you rather have one of this or this? And if you had to choose between the two.
But there's such a thing called false dichotomy, so is what he's trying to say, right?
It is false dichotomy. It's not. It doesn't exist. You can't compare things that don't exist.
I don't think that was I don't think it was a false dichotomy. But
that's not a statement. You're just shouting words that don't make sense now.
Yeah, but basically, furthermore to the point, like generally what we want to do in a society is like, I don't think you benefit anything from punishing children, simply because children also don't seem to be the largest perpetrators in these things. Like it would be a thing if there was like a systemic issue of minors trying to like falsify themselves with adults, like people over the age of majority. Like, does it happen sometimes? Sure. Is this like a huge issue? I don't think necessarily. Is there, but do we seem to have a systemic issue of people of like people trying to abuse and use their like level of privilege over children? That does seem to be a problem that happens in some degree of mass. And so it also like leans just from that perspective of this seems like the bigger issue to solve right now. But I don't know where we're at in the conversation. I was just commenting on what I heard since I've been here.
No. I mean, you're pretty on point with it. Like my issue is that these kids, right? I want to agree with y'all. Like, we can't punish the kids, right? We can't like that type of punishment where it's like, oh, it's a felony, or something crazy like that. But what I'm trying to prescribe is that there needs to be an out for an adult that did everything in their power to do the right thing and yet got a bad outcome. Give them an out, like, hey, here's your get out of jail free card because you didn't really try to do this.
I think when it comes to that, like this specific situation, we should probably discourage having sex with minors when you're that age, just because it can be turned against you. But it doesn't mean it's not morally permissible. So I'm prescribing that we should, as a society, view this act as morally permissible. I think it is also objectively morally permissible.
So hold on, what ages? To be clear, that's what you're saying.
Having sex with minors that meaningfully consent. So at any age, it really.
Whoa! I don't know about that one.
Clean that up. Clean that up a little bit.
I'm saying,
see, this is what I'm talking about. This is the type of shit that I'm fucking talking about.
Let him clean it up.
I'm saying the reason I'm saying this because I'm gonna give 17, then niggas gonna be like, that's an arbitrary number. What about 16 and 9/10? You know, that's why I said at any age that can meaningfully consent, right? So if you can meaningfully consent, and the chances are you need to be a certain age to meaningfully consent, right? There's no. Ain't nobody gonna be like 6-year-old that's gonna be meaningfully consenting, right? So
to try to steel man what he's saying, I think what he's saying, right?
Oh my god!
I'm gonna defend him because
it was okay.
I think what he's trying to say is that like we should it's probably morally permissible with like when you're talking about like 17 to 22-year-olds, right? That there's just because we draw this arbitrary line at 18, there's probably some wiggle room there, and we should probably make it morally okay for people to operate in this wiggle room where we draw the line. I think that's kind of what he's getting.
Okay. So hold on, I want to work with this.
He can tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So when I need to work with this because we need to get this very clear. All right, like
iron it out.
So the problem is, right, when we're talking,
these people
especially when
lost
we're
their
talking about the age
minds.
of consent, right? We're talking about morally, right? Like we can't like separate this one from the law. Oftentimes, I think we can separate these things, right? But if we get it wrong morally, right, we say something's morally acceptable in this way, then we have like damaged kids, right? So I don't think it's something that we can just like say like, oh, well, theoretically, in a moral sense, in a societal sense, this is okay, but in the law, like we will have different rules there, right? So you're saying that it should be okay if a child can morally consent, right? Or meaningfully consent. Meaningfully, thank you. Meaningfully consent, right? But all right, then I can agree with Top Dolphin with what he said, right? I can agree that like it could be possible that a 15-year-old might be able to quote unquote meaningfully consent, and however you want to describe that. But like, how is the law supposed to figure that out? How is like within a courtroom we decide, oh well, going to Top Dolphin's metrics, they run a business, and so you have contact with adults all the time, right? Like,
I agree.
Well, yeah, so like the law should be black and white, right? I've talked about this fucking topic a bunch of times on this goddamn channel, and I'm convinced that at least in terms of the law, it's got to be black and white. And if that is the case, then shouldn't society be more black and white about these things?
Actually, I think that I was actually having a conversation about this before, because I was actually sorting through my thoughts on it, and I mean, I think this is the reason why like Romeo and Juliet laws seem to exist, because like the age gap we're talking about, like the 17 and 20-year-old could have theoretically at one point been a 14 and 17-year-old that's like a young sophomore and an old junior in high school, like which we would, I think most people would find to be like at best reasonable. Like, oh, okay, yeah, they're one grade above me.
Let team respond, because he didn't get a chance to respond, and then we're going to Sly.
Yes, I don't think the law has to address this. I really don't. I think as a society, it could be, like I said, morally permissible, right? What I'm saying is the law can only be, the law can address abuse, right? And so why do we have automatic abuse? It should be, every abuse situation should be contextual. Did they actually abuse you? If that is the question, then you have proof of the said of what happened, or at least your testimony can say, "Hey, this person abused me for X, Y, and Z reasons." Age alone should not be proof enough of abuse.
I'm not sure you know what you're asking for. I'm not sure you know what you're asking for there.
I'm logically consistent. I'm sorry. I am logically consistent about this. I think there is no objective way to prove somebody abused you just by age. That is a fact.
No, it's not about abuse though. It's about setting it's about drawing a line in the sand and saying because actually you're right? Because we can't know. Because like I said, it's impossible for a courtroom to adjudicate this, because we can't know. We have to draw that line in the sand and say, don't go past this line.
I mean, you can't know. Can't know what?
You
can't know
what you just said. You
can't know just by age, but you can know by context.
No, you can't. No, I'm sorry. No, you can't. Look, we're talking about. Okay, forget about kids. Forget about kids for a second, right? Like, how hard is it to prove domestic violence cases? That like domestic violence cases are rarely as simple. They're really like those Lifetime stories where obviously there was this drunk guy, right? Unless a smack around his wife. It's really that simple. Like it's usually very much more complicated than that. And like going through that, or for like a rape cases, right? Again, people who are over 18, it's very complicated. So now you're bringing in the new variable of a child who like can easily be influenced and intimidated and scared into saying whatever the fuck, right? And then you're saying, oh, we will be able to tell if we take this, if we try to adjudicate this, even outside of a courtroom, we can somehow tell in this situation. You're asking for trouble.
They don't even have to be scared. Like there's people who feel like when I was 14, I had a teacher. I'm not gonna say her name, but this woman was fine. Let's just say you. And I would to this day, it would have been consensual sex. Like if she gave me the chance, boy. But and when I was 14, and I mean it, like I could meaningfully consent. But this 31-year-old woman should not have been allowed to have sex. Even if I could meaningfully, she should not have been allowed to do that.
Why?
Because well, one, we know from people's real life experiences. We know from people who are like, oh man, this generally happens with women more than men. So like, I'm gonna be speaking more to like women, because I was having a conversation with women earlier, and they talk about the first time like they turned 18, they met the guy that was 25 who had the money, the nice car, and that person made them feel really, really good about themselves, and they were happy and they were doing it, and then they look back when they're 27, 26, 27, and they feel really, really uncomfortable about that, saying that like that actually was really inappropriate, and even though they like you could have put their hand on the Bible and they would have said it was okay at the time, you grow, you get older, and you get more experience, you get a different vantage point, and you realize that something that you thought was appropriate wasn't.
But why did they think it wasn't appropriate? You have to ask further. You have to inquire further. Why did they think it was inappropriate? Because the situation you're telling us could happen at any age, not just at 18. It could happen at 25. And they're having
right. But that's what I'm saying. But that's why we protect children. Like it can't happen in any. It can literally. That was the prime point. It can literally happen in any age.
But that's just called regret. That's what I'm saying.
We protect children for doing wrong. That's the thing. Because like if you're 25 years old and you're going to a frat party, and this 17-year-old, if you're a 25-year-old woman going to like a frat party, and this 17-year-old boy got his fucking fake ID or whatever protection they tried to have at that frat party, and you don't know what the fuck is going on there. In that case, we're protecting. I guess we have to protect children in that case, right? That's what you're saying, right?
Me or
yeah, Black American Made.
Oh, wait, I have to protect children from what? Yeah.
So I said 25-year-old woman goes to a frat party. Yeah. So they say they really love young boys. Okay, they like them young. They like them college age. The younger, the better. And then they constantly are hooking up with 17-year-old boys at those frat parties, right? Who have quote unquote fake IDs. Maybe she finds out. Maybe she doesn't. She doesn't give a fuck, right? But in these cases, we have to protect the children, right? Because that you would see that person as a predator.
Yeah.
Right. But I made it clear for you in that case. In other cases, these situations are constantly happening where it's not clear. And so what can we do, which is what PrimeCayes was asking, what can the law do to make that space safer to avoid things like that?
Oh, I think the law is already in a really decent place. I think now we have to do work as a society. I think the idea, like I said, I think having strict age of consent is really important. I think also including Romeo and Juliet laws is like, I think the law has gone as far as we could expect the law to do. I think now we have to do the work of a society, which it seems like we've started doing in making people better. But I think putting further nuances in the levels of types of restrictions can just like complicate things. I think we can overcomplicate it.
And in the example that I gave too, Dream would, as long as that 17-year-old finds that 25-year-old hot, in the same way you gave your example, and they're willing to consent, he's okay with that. That's fine.
Yeah.
So I wanted to So I want to ask you guys if this is morally acceptable. So I'm looking at the Delaware age of consent laws, and guys, I hate like Googling the age of consent because I feel like I'm gonna be put on some type of list, right? But I looked it up for you all, right? So Delaware is actually quite interesting. So in Delaware, the age of consent is 18 years old. And so like individuals aged 17 or younger in Delaware are not legally able to consent to sexual activity. And such activity may result in prosecution for statutory rape. However, Delaware statutory rape law is violated when a person has consensual sex, sexual intercourse on 18. Close in age exceptions exist which allow minors aged 16 or 17 to consent to sexual intercourse so long as their partner is under the age of 30. Or if they are married, right? Or if they are married at the time of the incident,
right?
Minors age 16 may consent to a partner no more than 4 years older, and children under 12 cannot consent at all. So I think that's the most extreme of them all in Delaware, but I could be wrong about. I don't know, but yeah,
I'm never moving to Delaware.
There's actually
I want to know like the pedophilia map because it has to be strong in Delaware.
There's actually like no age of consent laws in no Romeo and Juliet laws in California. Like if you're 18 and have sex with a 17-year-old, that's a crime.
Well, no. Get back to what I just brought up. The Delaware.
Yeah. I think
isn't that how R. Kelly ended up? Not R. Kelly. Isn't that how Aaliyah and R. Kelly had their thing going on when she like 15? I feel like they went to Delaware.
So
like
when you're
16,
married,
16.
and this is almost. I'm not even sure if it's a separate subject, but it's a related subject, and a serious subject. About child brides. Yes. Because I just read you. There is also an exception when you are married, right? And the age to marry is different. I gotta look that up, but I believe in some states, like the age of where you can marry a child is 14,
12.
right?
Some states
you gotta,
12.
Yeah, it's like
With,
it's extremely.
With parents' permission, if you signed
with
a
the
pact.
parents' permission, they have to have like a judge sign off on it, but judges do sign off on these things. Right, like a judge can say that this 12-year-old or 14-year-old, right, they can marry a 35-year-old. This happens in America.
Yes,
So-
because
Yeah,
it
I
plays
think-
off the Western traditions that you would be wedded to somebody. Most of these cases are usually for economic gain.
That's not really
And that's
what.
not.
That's
I
global.
wouldn't even
I think
say
you
that's
meant
a Western
Eastern.
tradition.
Possibly.
That's what I
It's
meant.
like a
Eastern.
wor-
Did I
that's
say
a
Western?
global. That,
Okay,
that's
you
a
said
global
Western, but you
tradition.
meant Eastern, I think.
Yeah, I meant Eastern tradition, but
Oh,
it's
okay,
usually for economic gain, that you're going to be marrying into this family, so that they can join their assets and all of that stuff like that. That's usually what it was for back in feudal eras and Eastern cultures, and it
And
still
Jerry
is that
Lewis
way.
married his 13-year-old cousin.
In Middle Eastern cultures, it still is that way.
I mean, I think it's we live in the United States, so I mean, I'm not going to speak to other cultures and other places. I don't know what it's like over there, but in the United States, fuck the government. What I hate, the government tries to play this weird game with marriage where it's simultaneously basically a financial contract and also simultaneously like this weird like we got to make sure you actually love each other sort of thing. Right, that's how like annulments work. Like you only get an annulment. Like in some places, you only get an annulment if you haven't slept together, and you have to like prove that you haven't slept together with an annulment, or like to get an annulment and some, or to like. There's like a lot of weird things with marriage, or like with what do they like? If someone comes from overseas to get
From
like a
another
green card,
country,
they like
that's
check
what I was
up
trying
on
to
you
get,
to make
yeah.
sure you really love each other, sort of stuff, and they're actually married. Like I think the government plays this really weird game where they like try to be like, oh, we got to make sure you're in it for like the right reasons, but then also it's a financial transaction. I mean, at the end of the day, like marriage is like a contract between two adults. Kids shouldn't be allowed to get married, and like yeah, like you should be able to sign that contract if you're under 18. Like marriage is for adults, I think.
This is why this is why this conversation has to be outside the scope of law, because you can have dumbass laws out there. So we have to.
Well, it's not so much about outside the scope of law. It's about outside the scope of cultural significance when it comes to morality. In our culture, it is immoral.
I agree.
To marry somebody underage, but in Eastern cultures that are now a part of American culture because we refuse to have any type of assimilation, now it has become a part of our culture. And so,
I think you're thinking too high of Western culture, because like I said, what's his name? The King, Elvis Presley. Didn't he marry his 16-year-old? Like I said, Jerry Lee Lewis married his 13-year-old cousin.
Jade said she was 14 and he was like mid-20s, no?
She was 14 when they started dating, but I think once they got married, she was over 18, but they dated when she was 14 years old.
Who you talking about?
Elvis.
Okay.
Like mid-20s or older than that. I can't remember.
Yeah, that man is sick. And that's why he.
But what about her? What about the girl? Is the girl okay? Was she sick?
So look.
This is the type of thing that I'm talking about.
In that time period, right? Like being married that young was normal. Like my grandma got married when she was like 13. That was normal.
My grandma got married.
These laws weren't really on the books like that. Like that was a normal thing.
But you like it was that a long time ago. Again, you said your grandma.
But Smooth, was she being abused? Yeah. Was she taken advantage of as a 14-year-old, or did she meaningfully consent as a 14-year-old to date Elvis?
Who? The girl? We're talking about the Elvis girl, right?
Yeah, Elvis's wife.
Yeah, so I have no idea. I'm not in her head. I'm not in that situation. Like
I would say she's a victim.
But if we think about this logically, right? In the old days, they was marrying a lot earlier. Why?
Yeah, it was all about money.
Why are we all okay? But we're not saying that they were taken advantage of, is what I'm saying. Historically,
Historically, unless it was something that was usually like you could say in the cases of Muhammad, where it was pretty much forcefully, but in other cases, it usually wasn't, because you had to get the consent of the father, usually, since the mothers didn't really have much say so back then. But you got the consent of the father, and it was usually about how they were going to join the two families. They were going to expand business wise. It was going to be economic, and for the most part, until the child was going to come of age, and they were in need of an heir to the estate.
But the childbearing age would have been around
9,
13, 12 or whatever, right?
Like,
Yeah,
and that was
maybe even
younger. You know what's crazy?
You talking about Islam, right?
No, not just
No.
Islam.
He's talking about just like.
I mean,
you know what's crazy? Like we just talked about this. Me and my peoples, like we just talked about this. Like, it's easier biologically for a woman to bounce back from having kids the younger she is, which is crazy to think about. Like,
it's not that like, well,
no.
It's the younger you are to a certain point. So there's like technically, I think 17 to like 20 is like the age where women can have kids, and it's like super great. But if you start to go too early, you get really bad things that can happen to women if they get pregnant too early, and you also get really bad things that can happen if they get pregnant too late. So like there's like a sweet spot in there. But I don't think we need to go all the way back to like feudal Japan and like feudal Europe, right? Because like there's like marriage is obviously like a different thing to them, right? And like just be saying because it's for money doesn't necessarily mean it's okay. Like let's say like a feudal Japanese family getting married for money, right? Where they join the two families together, and these people are like married in name only, and they probably don't even sleep in the same room or like have sex or anything like that, or maybe they do, who knows. It's gonna be a lot different than like, let's say like Elvis in like I don't know when Elvis was alive, the 60s, the 50s, I don't know. Elvis, right, marrying a girl for money would have been like a completely not okay thing, right? Maybe this girl was trying to like elevate her status. We would say like in society, by marrying somebody who has more status, we would probably say that isn't a fair thing. That's probably like unjustified power. There's unjustified power dynamics there that aren't really being accounted for, and we probably say that's not wrong, right? So like just like these aren't always, just because like there's a historical precedent for something, these things aren't like analogous necessarily, because like money is one of the power dynamics that like why we don't let kids fuck children. Like that's like probably a big part of it, actually, is that like adults have like houses and places, and they have all this independence that like a kid necessarily could like get from them, and that's like probably one of like a power dynamic that's not fair, and why we don't let adults and children have like sexual relations with each other.
Not exclusive to children. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why we have these like workplace laws where your boss can't be in a relationship with you, right? So it's only if the power dynamic exists, yeah, you should be careful. But just because a power dynamic exists doesn't mean that it's being abused.
Let's take a look.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's take a look at some of these laws, though, right? So according to this article, and I'm not sure when this article was written, unfortunately. Oh, this is 2022 was written. It says approximately 200,000 minors have been married in the last 15 years. Underage marriage is not permitted in the United States unless there are exceptional circumstances, such as consent of court clerk or judge, consent of the minor's parents or legal guardians. One of the parties is pregnant, interesting, or has given birth to a child, or the minor is emancipated. That's interesting about the one of the parties is pregnant, right? Because what that sounds like is that in other countries, you know, when shotgun, when other countries where she's gotten pregnant, and so to preserve our honor, she's got to get, that's shotgun wedding. Yeah, what am I saying? It's exactly that, shotgun wedding. To preserve her honor, she gets married. So I'm really curious about that part. I've been looking into this while we're talking, and there's like 3 ages, right? And I'm going to read you some interesting facts, right? But there are 3 ages you got to worry about here. 1, the general marriage age, that's usually 18, right? The minimum marriage age by statute, and then the marriage age set by common law. But to figure out when you're allowed, the minimum age requirements are the minimum age with parental and judicial court consent, the minimum age with parent consent, and the minimum age without parental consent, right? So again, that's usually 18, and then it's like 16 and 17 usually with parental consent, and then it can get younger than that with court consent. So looking at this article, it says, right, and this is the most extreme one, it seems, and it's surprising where it comes from. With parental consent, the minimum marriage age in Massachusetts is 14 years old for boys and 12-year-olds for girls, and which is amazing, right? But it's also consistent, right? Like that's the youngest I've seen. But it's also consistent that like there are different ages for boys and girls, and usually like boys is like 2 years older than girls. So like girls can get younger, get married at 2 years younger. Like, do you think these laws are predatory? Like, why is that the case? Why would it be any different? I mean, we're protecting kids, then we should be protecting like both kids, right? Because boys and girls can be taken advantage of. But we specifically give like younger children, younger girls, the ability to marry sooner.
The reasoning might be that possibly my guess. The reasoning might be that women develop quicker or girls develop quicker than boys, possibly. But
that's not the
other than that. I don't know why. I
don't think we're at the age where that matters yet.
I know where those fucking say that shit.
I would say historically
that's
speaking,
my
right?
broadcast.
Historically speaking, a boy was considered a man around 14. Like most of your grandparents, great grandparents didn't go to high school. At 14, your grandfather, he was out working. You know what I'm saying? So if he was out working, if he was 14 and was able to work,
we get that.
He could then marry.
Smooth. We already understand this though. But Smooth, like, why are these laws still in the books? Like, we get that in the past.
Oh, that's because nobody cares to change them.
I disagree with that.
That's not the case. There are people, because I've talked about this before. There are people who are fighting within states' houses to get these things changed, right? And they get a lot of pushback. And they get pushback, I think, if I'm remembering this correctly, I think it was mostly from Republicans, that there was a ton of pushback. But there were active conversations about this now. There's like a website like trying to raise awareness about this and saying, hey, we take this to the state house every year, and then we get pushback from certain legislators saying that we should leave it as it is. So there are active conversations.
And I say people
isn't Tennessee trying to do that this year?
We need to know the data first. Like, what's the data after these kids are married? Is this a harmful relationship?
Oh my god!
No,
seriously.
Whoa! Get your man. I get what he's at, but I don't think we necessarily.
I have an article, right? So I've already came prepared. Early teen marriage and future poverty, a study on that, right? Talking about both early teen marriage and dropping out of high school have been historically associated with a variety of negative outcomes, including higher poverty rates throughout life. Are these outcomes due to pre-existing differences, or do they represent causal effect of marriage and schooling choices, right? I already got a study for you right fucking here.
Good.
Like, this is, like, are you serious?
I'm saying if there was no difference between marrying young and marrying older, then and they were like, and it was a consensual and happy thing, marriage, I really don't see a problem with it.
So so you're backing child marriage.
Save your man. Take the mic.
Marry people.
Please get your man. Holy shit.
Please.
You're like, babe,
you can marry her when she's 14, but you gotta wait till she's 18 to fuck.
We can't hear her, Jade.
Save your man.
We can't hear her, Jade. Get the mic closer.
Oh, I was saying I definitely feel different about this. I feel like kids shouldn't be allowed to make such a huge decision at this age. And I said that to Hatim, and he was, because I said you can't possibly know who you want to spend the rest of your life with if you're like 15, 12, 13, whatever.
I said you can't know later.
He said there is a possibility that you may not know at 50, but I just feel like because of what someone mentioned earlier, our brain isn't developed fully yet. And my mom even says, the person who you are at one age, you're not the same person at 15 as you are at 20. So I don't feel like you should be, tied to that person so young, because you could regret it so soon. I mean, one food you may like one day is not the same food that you like next week. You know, I just
Let
feel like
alone men.
exactly.
True.
You get a divorce if you want.
But I'm saying,
Yeah.
I feel like it's better to not even allow them to make that decision altogether.
Right.
But
wait,
so should the parents be allowed to? Should the parents be allowed to make it for them?
No, it's a personal decision.
But I thought the kids want to, and then it's the parents that sign off on it. Is that what?
Yeah.
is going on?
So it's parental consent. So how these goes, if I'm remembering this correctly, that it's parental consent and like a judge signs off of it, and the judge like interviews the child and at least supposed to interview the child and then see if everything's up and up, right? But understand, so the situation, you are a child, usually a female, right? You know, that's the way these things usually go. Usually a woman, and a girl, a girl, and your parents say, like, we want you to marry off to this person, right? Then you have an older adult putting pressure on you, your future husband putting pressure on you, right? And they're both telling you, like, this is the way it's got to be, right? Or this is what's expected of you. Is that child, again, giving any sort of meaningful consent, even within the bounds of parental advisory, right?
Well, coercion is not meaningful consent.
How can you... Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. That's the problem.
You asked a question that's obvious. The answer is
no. But here, okay, Hatim.
You're saying it's hard to know.
Hatim,
That's what you're
It's hard to know. It's hard to gauge that.
Hard for us to know. Hard for us to know if this is the case. Look, there is a reason. There is immigration patterns, right? Where some people from foreign countries where child marriage is like a thing, like a big thing in other countries, right? They come to certain states. They like move to certain states specifically for this reason. You can pressure a child to say yes. You're saying that, like, well, yeah, that would be wrong.
You can pressure anyone to say yes at any age, and it's still wrong at any age.
How would you
Yeah,
know?
but like,
no, at any age.
Wait. But children are more susceptible to being.
Wait. Hard to know, Prime. What age has become not hard to know?
D1 But what you're saying is that there should be no age-based restrictions on anything ever, right? Obviously, you can pressure somebody at any age, but like the difference between pressuring a minor and pressuring a person, like, for example, right? Let's say that like this is like a really simple example. Let's say that like a minor is gonna get kicked out of their house, and like this dude's like, "Hey, I'll take you in, but like you gotta marry me or you gotta sleep with me," right? Like that person, that child in that situation probably has a lot more pressure on them than an adult who would be in the exact same situation, right?
What if that child that adult could be like homeless or like it could be put in the same situation.
Well, obviously in that situation, yeah, like, but no, right. Even a homeless adult would probably have less pressure on them than a child in that situation, right? There would be pressure, and I would even say that pressure is unfair, and it exists with adults, but
not really. But I understand.
I mean, children. I mean, maybe not. But
first of all, an adult can't be adopted and put into like a foster home, while a child can't. At least to have some type of recourse, they can call CPS or whatever, go to the police, be like, "Hey, I'm a homeless child." They'll put you in some system and have a house. Where if you're an adult, you're just gonna, if you can't get into a homeless shelter,
you're putting the earnest on the child to know about these systems and know how to contact these people.
No. First of all,
yeah, I'm not.
Information that child will know. They definitely will. They should Google it.
Bro.
Okay, a homeless child. Let's Google it. Got it.
Public library.
Dream. I understand.
Public library is.
The point is, it's hard for an adult and it's hard for a child. That's what I'm saying. We can debate the minuscules, be like, oh yeah, it's 1% harder for the child or something. But I'm saying in a situation where they're both like helpless, right? They're jobless and they're dependent, right? Adults can be dependent on people. Be like, hey, if you're not staying with me, then I'm gonna kick you out of the house. That adult is just as abused.
Wait, so I have a question. Why don't we let adults have sex with minors, Dream? Like why?
I literally said earlier, if the minor can meaningfully consent,
he would like to. Yeah. He would like to allow that.
So he's just okay. He's just okay for adoption. So we should just get rid of age of consent laws completely.
It is so rare.
In the name of love.
It is so rare, right? For that to actually happen, that it's actually less. I feel like if we have in a perfect world, this will happen. But that's why I agree with the age of consent laws, because we don't have a magic like in my perfect world. It would be like a slider, kind of like a metal detector, and like swipe down on a person and be like, yep, you have the you are allowed to meaningfully consent, like your mental stability is okay, and you understand you have puberty and stuff like that. Where I actually believe that, and some adults shouldn't have the right to not even a right, but some adults don't even have the capability to meaningfully consent, but we still allow that to happen. And I think that's wrong in of itself, right? Like some 18-plus-year-olds can never meaningfully consent, but we just stipulate it in that it's okay. And even if they have consent where they're just as childish as some children, there's a lot of adults out there that's really childish.
Let me build the bridge. Let me build it. Okay.
I understand.
Oh God, not the bridges again.
Yeah, the bridge is coming out. It's being built.
Oh my God.
Like,
we have a different builder though.
So substantially, like I agree with you. Like, yes, if we had a magic wand that could tell someone like who has whatever capacity to consent, that would obviously be a better world. But it's so. I don't know. It's so it's kind of weird to like base the conversation around that, because it's so up here, and we're like digging down to like the reasons why we do the things we do in the world we exist in.
Well, let's talk about it this way. It's so easy just to say that okay, maybe there's 1 in a billion kids who can consent to sex, or 1 in a billion 14-year-olds who can consent to marriage, but there's only been 200,000. So like all these 200,000 kids are fucked because we haven't had a billion yet, right? Anyway, so I don't think we should necessarily like have rules in place for that one child that maybe can consent, right? Like we should probably just keep like with age of consent laws, we should probably have age of marriage laws that do the exact same thing, right? Because
what I'm saying, like I said earlier, I think we should discourage this behavior, but morally,
we should just make it illegal for 14-year-olds to marry 30-year-olds.
What I'm saying is, it is conceivable.
Which would be closer.
It's conceivable that a teenager can meaningfully consent. Correct?
A teenager can
is it possible theoretically
in some way, like to another teenager, to an adult, like?
Not
to be married, to have sex, to choose what food they want to eat. Like, what are you talking about?
Okay, so we can understand that. Do you think that some teenagers are more mature than some 30-year-old people?
Yeah, probably.
No. Yes,
they lack experience.
100%. There's some dumbass adults out here. Okay?
Depending on the situation, some yes.
Right, and I'm saying, in this case, where we allow this 30-year-old to do whatever they want, even if they are so childish, this really mature teenager, morally speaking, has the same capability to meaningfully consent as that older person, even though
they don't have the machine to pick who those teenagers are.
I'm fine with that. What I'm saying is, I don't want to
act on that morality.
I agree with you. We don't have that machine. That's why I'm okay with the age of consent being 18, pragmatically speaking. But I'm saying, philosophically and morally speaking, we should not see this as an immoral act, is what I'm saying. Bam.
Like what you'd say, it's like necessary but not sufficient, right? That's like it's necessary that you be able to mean. It's not like being. It's sufficient but not. Oh, what's the word? I can't remember. Being
like
a certain age is
sufficient. Yeah. Let's get it smooth, but okay,
to talk about.
I'll respond.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so with like emancipation, right? So you'll have somebody like, let's take like Jaden Smith for example. He was like 16, 17, got emancipated. It's okay for Zoe Kravitz to be hanging out with him and possibly fucking him, and that's okay. Even though she was like clear into her 20s, that's okay. Like she was way up there. She was like 25, 24. Like that's okay because he's been deemed to be mature enough. Like what is this maturity? You know what I'm saying? I don't think that it's okay for those scenarios. We have to. I think the broad scope of the law needs to just broadly protect children.
You only think it's not okay for like mass societal security pragmatic reasons, and I understand that. My perspective is one-on-one, very specific, a perfect world situation.
Yeah, I don't think anybody disagrees with you, Dream. But the issue is
it's a weird conversation.
We're talking about the laws on the books, right? So when Prime brought up the marriage thing, he was like, should 30-year-olds be able to marry 14-year-olds? that marriage part, there is no moral definition of marriage. It's purely a legal thing, right? So you can't be like, oh yeah, I think 14-year-olds should be able to marry 30-year-olds. Who cares? Like, you're implicitly making a statement that, like, legally this should be okay when we're talking about the law.
It's not also the
legally it should be okay morally.
Okay, but
legally it should be morally okay to marry people. It should be morally okay to legally marry 14-year-olds to legally marry 30-year-olds. Got it. That's not how that works.
No, not even 30-year-olds, 60-year-olds, right? Because there's no
morality,
a maximum age when we're talking about the marriage part. So look, so Hatim, in other countries, right? We hear these reports all the time. In other countries, there are incidences where they force a woman or a girl to marry her rapist, right? So a guy gets her pregnant, right? And then because of their honor, they're like, the parents pressure her into marriage. Is that wrong? Or is that okay?
Is that forced by law or forced by parents?
Both. Well, I think a little bit.
Probably
of
both.
there.
Depending on the country.
Yeah.
By society.
You bring the society.
By
take you outside and stone you to death.
So yeah,
it's normal. It's normal code society.
Forcing anyone to do anything, really, if it's harming them, is a bad thing.
But what if they say because society says it's shameful, right? Look, she didn't want to have the sex, but it was shameful for her. She doesn't want to bring shame to her family, so she says yes. That I'm gonna marry this guy. Right now, we can understand that the sex is not consensual, and that's bad, right? So we say that's bad. But after that, if the girl says yes, I want to marry this person so I can protect my family's honor, is that bad? Is that morally acceptable?
Is she being coerced to say yes?
No, her parents didn't say a fucking thing, but her society.
So her society allows for this.
Her society says that she is now shaming her family because she is pregnant, and not married. So she says yes.
So what's the question?
So is that morally acceptable?
Is that morally acceptable?
Her saying yes to this marriage proposal by her rapist, right? But no one, her family didn't tell her to, but she does so anyway. Should that be morally acceptable?
It's morally permissible, but not morally preferable.
But those are the types of questions you would get into if you followed your prescription.
I just said it's not morally preferable.
Yeah, hold on. So I don't understand.
That would be the gray area.
Yeah.
That would be the gray area.
Is this a good thing that this 60-year-old, right, who knocked up this 13-year-old, can marry her? Like, yes or no on this?
Can a what marry her?
A 60-year-old marry a 13-year-old. He knocked her up. She says yes to the marriage.
Yes or no answer.
Is 16 and 13 or 30?
60. 60.
60.
13-year-old 1-3.
If what?
That scenario.
They marry.
They marry.
Can they get married?
If your grandpa marries your
if a 60-year-old can go rape a 13-year-old and knock her up and then marry her, is that morally?
He's gonna say, "Well, I think rape is bad." You have to explain the conversation better. You have to do ABCs with this man. They had a sexual interaction. Afterwards, she doesn't want to shame her family. Like that's her reasoning for consenting to the marriage, because she doesn't want to shame her family. Do you think that this is okay?
I think now looking at it, I don't think that's reason enough. I should not be a reason enough to get married. If just not shame, I don't think that should be allowed.
Oh, okay, hold on.
I don't think that should be allowed. If the only reason you're marrying somebody is to prevent shame on your family, that should not be allowed.
I mean, how would you tell?
It's bringing honor to the family if they do marry. Yeah, that's the society she is in.
If the only reason to marry is to prevent shame, then you should not marry.
No, it's
how do you practically know that?
Shame to bring honor.
Okay, you're just saying semantics, bro.
It's not necessarily bringing honor.
No, sorry, guys. Hold on.
That's a society thought.
Let me deal with this, right? Because we need just one person. So Hatim, gay this woman, this girl, right, is making this decision because of societal pressures, right? So, like as Bam said, it's because that it was consensual because she said it was fine at the time, but now she didn't expect to get pregnant. She is pregnant, and she knows there's consequences otherwise. She's trying to mitigate those consequences, and so she says yes. You're saying, well, that shouldn't be a good enough reason, but if we bring this here to the U.S., women are shamed, right? Are slut shamed oftentimes for their sexual behavior. Women under 18 get pregnant, right? And we shame them as, teenage parents and like marrying outside of wedlock. That happens here in the States. So could it be the case that here in the States, when a girl who is underage gets herself into that situation, right, that she might feel societal pressure, right, to do this, and since we have laws in the books that allow for it, that it'll happen any which way?
I understand what you're saying, but I'm not understanding why you're making the distinction at age, where this could happen at any age, and I think it's bad at any age.
Because it's more likely to happen. You're more likely to be pressured as a child, right? Because you're more likely to be exploited as a child.
Okay, but you're also like, it doesn't matter what's more likely. I think it's better.
No, is that yes or no? Is that yes or no?
But I'm saying my law, if I were to
likely to be exploited as a child.
Yes, I think so, because
so
you're
making that distinction.
But that's why I wanted to have a 1-by-1 case scenario. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it should be, let's put a blanket thing about this case.
Then this isn't a societal prescription you're giving then.
Exactly.
I am, because I'm saying take it to the court, and the courts will do an investigation on the people getting married.
Because courts do such a great job. Because courts go.
I agree. Courts do a bad job, and they should be doing a better job. I agree.
Wait, like you need to put it in the hands of courts. Dream, you need a law in the books. You need at least something, a standard, something.
There was that judge, like again, that famous rape case, and was in California, where the guy rapes the girl outside, like behind a dumpster, right? And the judge says, "Yeah, I don't want to ruin this guy's life, so I'm gonna give him a slap on the wrist," right? There are judges who think this way, who think very little of women. You're gonna put this in their hands, saying you have the power to just allow this, like whatever the judge might think, or the court clerk, because it doesn't have to be a judge, or a court clerk.
That's just the reality of judging.
Do you think that there's truth to like? Do you think?
Oh boy.
That's every case can happen with that. I mean,
this isn't the first topic that I've heard your team make this do this route. Do you believe that like what people say? You can only take what people say as reality. Like if they say something, then that's the truth.
I think you should do investigation to find out what the truth is. And if people are just such good liars, then they're bringing that detriment upon themselves if they're lying to that much degree.
Sure, but like the world is more complicated than that. Because I remember you said as much on like unrelated to the last topic. You were like, "Oh yeah, I tell girls they don't have to give me head, but if they do, it's because they want to." Like,
no, I specifically said like, if girls want to give me head, that's their prerogative. But I always make it as like, hey, I don't give head. I'm not comfortable with that. And if I'm not comfortable with something, you shouldn't be able to force me to do that.
Sure, but I'm saying, but I don't know. It seems like you have a very simplistic view of how humans operate. Like there's not more factors involved in why people make decisions.
A very complicated view, a very very nuanced view, and I think that we should take very
nuanced.
Yeah, my nuance is that we should be specific in our application in terms of.
But people can be manipulative.
Very simple.
in their
at any age.
Okay.
So it's bad at every age. So we should have a universal law that applies to the scenario, not just the age itself.
Okay, but the reason.
There's a difference, right? Yeah. Because there's a difference when you apply it. You can't there's reason we have blanket rules for things, even though not everything's blanket. For example, so in this case with marriages, can you give me like a reason, like a valid reason that should hold up in court, why a 14-year-old and a 30-year or a 60-year-old who want to get married can't wait 4 years till she's 18?
You're asking me why? why?
Like, why can't they wait for why can't they wait 4 years till they're 18?
Are you
She's 18, right?
Are you saying like a reason that will hold up in court today?
No, like a reason that like should hold up in court. Like, give me a good reason. We don't ignore the court thing.
One thing would be like she's being coerced to get married, right? If she's being
that's a justifiable reason, not just
something that you would support. Like why you would say that? Like,
would you support her getting coerced to get married? I'm assuming not.
My answer was if she was coerced to get married, she should wait. She shouldn't get married to this guy. Is what I'm saying.
We're saying, doesn't matter.
What is the question?
Like, what's a justifiable reason why someone like you're saying that like theoretically, right? Hypothetically, there's a reason that like this 60-year-old and this 14-year-old can get married, right? Like that we shouldn't make a rule against it because in some situation this should be allowed. What I'm saying is you have to give me if we want to not blanket ban this below that age, you have to give me a reason why it's okay, like why they can't just wait 4 years. Why why we can't like ban this because they can't wait till they're older, until they're adults.
I don't think the question is why can't they wait 4 years because you can ask that question indefinitely. Could you not?
No, just answer that question.
No. You classify minors differently than adults.
The counter to that is like, why do they have to wait 4 years? Like, you'd have to give me a reason why they have to wait 4 years.
Well, they could be at the age of majority.
Because I can say it because it's impossible.
I want to.
So you should be able to.
My thing is, I don't think there is a reason why there that would.
I can give you a reason. I can just say it because I think that this situation, right? It's really hard to tell, and this 14-year-old is subject to a lot of influences that could be compromising her judgment. Because she's a minor, it's impossible for us to know whether she's acting of her own capability or being influenced.
Say that though, like you said, because she's a minor, it's impossible for us to know what happens at 18 that makes it possible for us to know.
What happens at well, obviously, okay. Can you tell me that there's a meaningful distinction between a 14-year-old and a 22-year-old? Do you think there's a meaningful distinction?
I think there is in most cases a meaningful distinction, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that a 14-year-old is more mature than an 18-year-old.
Okay, but the reason we have okay, well, let's let the ladies talk.
What does Jay want to say?
I was trying to say your brain changes as you go through puberty between 14 and 20.
But some people are mature earlier.
Okay, but you're not going to be fully mature at 14.
And you're not going to be fully mature at 18. And you could be fully more fully mature at 14 than some person at 18. Is that impossible, Jay?
What if I said 99% of people
let Jay
were
go.
75%?
Let Jay go.
Yeah, I want to see what the rest of Jade has to say.
I was saying he felt so passionately that a 14-year-old and a 30-year-old could get married. So why can't he provide a reason? Why can't he answer Top Dolphin's question?
I did answer. I said I don't think there is any reason that a 14-year-old.
There are some reasons that will stand up in law, but they're very rare. Just the reason, some of those reasons that will be, for example, would be the older person is on their deathbed and they want to leave their inheritance down. They can't just pass it down through a will, so they would have to go through a legal binding contract of marriage to be able to leave their inheritance to the certain person. So there are reasons, but these reasons are so vague and so rare that
wait, that's not a good reason because like let's say they like 6-year-old like is on their deathbed, they could adopt the 14-year-old instead of getting married to them. There's a different marital contract that would like do the same exact thing.
Allow for adoption.
Adoption does not allow you to do that when it comes to
yes, you can, because once you adopt them, you become their legal guardian.
Inheritance
you can write a will.
Inheritance definitely works through children. When you adopt someone, they become your child, and you can.
The law doesn't operate that way. I have sold life insurance and dealt with inheritance for my entire adult career.
Okay, I don't want to get too lost in this.
Are you telling me that like I can adopt someone and then they can't inherit my shit?
Shut up! I'm talking, please.
No, they're at the bottom of the line.
That's a different subject. I think that's interesting, but it's a different subject. Okay, look, Jade was trying to get Dream to respond to something. Jade, if you could repeat what you were saying to Dream again, or Hatim.
He felt so passionately that a 14-year-old and a 30-year-old could get married without a problem. Why didn't he answer Top Dolphin's question directly? He didn't give
What was his question? What was his question?
Said, can you give me a reason why these two people can't just wait 4 years until they're age of majority?
I said that I don't believe that there is a reason outside of like obviously not being able to meaningfully consent or having a good reason to get married. Like if they don't have a good reason to get married, and I think a good reason to get married is love, or like they actually do want to out of like the bottom of their heart. Like I really love this person, and I think this is a.
Sorry, you're not giving us a reason why you shouldn't wait. Right, like
well, they shouldn't wait. You said that a 14-year-old and a 30-year-old should be able to get married. I'm asking if these two people can get married, why can't they wait 4 years? Can you give me a reason why that shouldn't be a thing? Why they can't just wait till they're?
I don't think there's any reason that they can't wait, but I also don't think.
Wait. Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Right. And
what if I can show? What if I could show you that the potential for abuse between a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old goes down from like 75% to like 15%? Right? What if I could show you that? What if I had that statistic on hand? Then do you think it would be fair for 14? Yeah, let's say if a 60-year-old marries a 14-year-old, there's a 75% chance for abuse. But if a 64-year-old marries an 18-year-old, there's a 15% chance for abuse. What if that was true, right? If saying that's true, do you think it's fair for me to then go make a law that says, hey, if you're 14, like under a certain age, if you're under 18, you can't get married. Right. And then we can just wait. You can just, if you want to get married, you can just wait till you're old enough to where that like threshold for abuse goes down to a point where like society is OK with bearing the consequences.
My response to that is that the threshold for abuse changes based on the different characteristics and context that each 14-year-old or whatever age has. Right. So you as an average 14-year-old may have a very high likelihood to get abused, but what if you were a genius at an early age or had a 2-parent household
I understand that.
But these are outside of.
I understand that dream.
That could decrease
75% of the time, right? I'm saying like in this situation, 75% of the time, a 14-year-old is getting abused. Right. So as a society, what we ought to do, right, is we ought to say, hey, if the potential for abuse goes down in just 4 years, we should just tell these people to wait. You can't give me a good reason why they shouldn't wait. Right. Do you agree?
To be on the safe side.
Just to be on the safe side. Right. But I'm saying in a rights aspect, that on an individual rights aspect, we
so children.
But the issue too,
right?
There's also another issue too.
You're talking. Oh my God!
I've agreed with this stance since the beginning because I've said on a societal level that I agree with the age of consent, obviously. But I'm saying on a more like, if this happens, do we view the person that is on the older end as an evil person? Okay. My contention is no, we shouldn't view this as
the issue is that you don't.
That's why I'm saying it's a moral situation.
We got all right, fine. We gotta move past this because we're coming off. We're already over time for our first topic.
Essentially agree.
Wait, can I ask you one question? Prime, I have a question for Prime actually.
Okay.
So regarding the marriage thing, so the one pushback I do actually have against the whole, like you said, there was like 200,000 in the last 15 years of like underage people getting married. I believe, right?
Yeah.
My only issue with that, my one question would be, who is the demographic of people, the girls in this case, or young boys who are getting married to older people? Because for like 200,000 is not that many. And for example, let's say it's like almost exclusively like people who live on Native American reservations, and it allows them some sort of like weird protection under the law that they wouldn't be able to have. It's like that, like they need at that young of an age, or like Amish communities, right? Maybe like these communities might have a reason for having these laws, but I don't know. That's the only reason I wouldn't be against. I wouldn't necessarily be against it. I don't know who this demographic of girls is who are getting like married at 14.
So we had a conversation specifically on child marriage months ago. Maybe like over a year ago, I don't know. And I had more information about it, but it's not just limited to those individuals. And even then, like the fuck the Amish, like Amish shouldn't be allowed to do this shit either. Like what? Like
the idea is that like obviously they shouldn't be having sex with these 14-year-olds maybe, but Amish community, a lot of the societal pressures, right, for Amish people in this situation aren't the same as they would be for like people who are in like a broader culture.
Yeah, they're worse. Yeah, they're in a fucking cult. Yes. And child marrying cult. Sorry, I'm not sure about that. I'm not gonna call it the Amish because I'm actually not sure what they do. But like they are on those like Mormon compounds, right? Yeah, they have different societal pressures. Yeah, even more intense societal pressures to marry at those ages. And we see the stories from 14-year-olds talking about how like the 60-year-old church elders like force them to get married and then force themselves on them. That's absolutely the case. So yeah, I don't say like, oh yeah, this is a different. No, if the Native Americans are doing it, the fucking Native Americans are wrong too. But okay. All right, so we're just gonna have to leave out.